Hey guys, welcome to the first podcast. Now, I don't know what to call this, so if you've got a name for it, let me know. Hopefully, you enjoy it. Listen, I would love any feedback on it after you've listened to this. But in this podcast, I want to talk about ceilings, hitting plateaus, and how to get past them. Now, when you very first start doing anything, it's going to be brand new. You're going to have your honeymoon period. When someone starts the gym, I often term the first 2 weeks to 2 months as the honeymoon period because you've got the new thing. It's exciting. You're going to go pretty much consistently. You might be doing similar exercises. And then over time, the motivation to do that sort of wears off. And then eventually it becomes a bit of a chore to actually go. Now, for the majority of people, I would argue that this becomes their ceiling. They get stuck, they hit a plateau because they're not feeling like they're making progress. And usually this is down to the fact that they're not challenging themselves. Now, so many times when we start people off in the gym, we know that they're going to get super excited within the first 30 days because we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to show them exactly what to do. We're going to help them to implement things when it comes to the nutrition and give them the support where they need it when it comes to keeping them on track so that they're focused and moving towards the goals rather than staying stuck in the same position. Now, one of the major reasons why some people don't get those results, and I mean, I still kick myself as a coach when this happens, is because they're not staying on top of things. They're not taking action. They're not being accountable to themselves, and they're not being consistent in terms of their approach. Now, if you want to improve your fitness, but you only go to the gym once per week, you can still do that, but it's going to take a lot longer than you think. Now, if you want to improve your strength, but you spend all your time doing home workouts where you jump around your living room, you're pretty much not going to improve your strength. It's just not the case. If your goal is to lose body fat, to tone up, and you spend all of your time just going into the gym, doing rigorous amounts of exercise, but then not taking any interest in your nutrition whatsoever, you're probably not going to tone up because toning up requires you to lose body fat. It also requires you to challenge the muscles in a way that you can see the shape within them. So it's really important to understand what your goal is at the starting point. Now, we're talking about ceilings and hitting plateaus here. So usually what we'll find is that as a result of someone training with us for a little while, they will hit a new ceiling. And this usually happens as a process of like, oh, I'm feeling like I'm getting stronger. So I'm just going to sit at this point for a little while now. And I've had this conversation with the coaches recently about using this term, stick or twist. And this is a way for us to measure whether it's right for you to push or whether you just want to stick in the same position. Now, it's great that you're actively coming to the gym and you're consistently doing that because you'll have built that as part of your identity if you've been doing this for probably 6 months or more now, because it's just something that you do. Some people, I guarantee in your life, will not understand. You'll go into work and you say, what are you doing tonight? And you go, oh, I'm going to the gym. And they go, I don't know how you can handle that. Like the last thing I can think of after I've finished a hard day at work is going to the gym. I just want to go home and sit down. But usually those people feel like crap as a result. So it's good that you don't identify in that way because in going to the gym, you've got your own reasons behind it. And every single person is individual in this instance. Like just recently, I was speaking to one of the girls and they'd said that they thought they were coming for the physical well-being. But it turns out that after coming for a year, it was the mental well-being that they've seen the biggest improvement with. And I said, yeah, there's a reason behind that is because you can't be down and out when you're physically active. When you're actively moving towards something and you're challenging yourself, it's really difficult to be down. And I said, do you know what? I said, one of the biggest things that I've recognized recently is the impact that being physically active has had on me mentally, because I've faced a lot of challenges when it comes to the business. I sit in front of a computer like this on a regular basis to do content, and I find it really challenging. So I have to find something genuine to motivate myself. So often, if I sit here and I'm recording these and I feel like, oh God, it's just not going right, I get up, I get my stuff, I go to the gym, I do a workout, I come back, I've got some new ideas in my head, and I've just got a new thought process. Now, contrast that with how people will think in the on the toilet. I've heard that called the think tank before. I don't know if anyone else has heard that term, but anyway, or coming up with ideas in the shower. Because you're putting yourself in a position like that, you're allowing your thoughts to sort of express themselves. You come up with ideas. And generally what I'll do is when I go to work out now, I put on a podcast, and I put on a podcast that talks about things that are nothing to do with health and fitness. I was listening to a podcast by a guy called Rory Sutherland. If you don't know who he is, he's quite an overweight guy. Loves vaping, loves smoking. Totally anti anything to do with health and fitness, but an absolute genius when he talks about marketing. And the marketing conversation he was having was that he was talking about the Eurostar. They spent £6 billion on reducing the time it takes to get the Eurostar from, is it London or wherever it is, over the channel. £6 billion to do that. And he was like, what they could have done is essentially paid every top end model, male and female, to serve people on that train to make it seem like it wasn't a challenge, that people actually enjoyed the journey. So rather than making the journey a chore, it was just a different way of looking at it. And I thought, that's quite interesting, because how does that apply to other areas? Because there's always times when we hate waiting for stuff. You get a takeaway or you book it. I tell you, this is a great one. I'm going off on tangents. I like this. This is a great one. So you book a taxi. We've got borrowed taxis around here. Hopefully, most people don't use them because they're a bit of a nightmare. Anyway, we've got borrowed taxis around here, and you call up, you book a taxi, and then they're like, yeah, they'll be with you in about 10 minutes. 15 minutes later, you're on the phone. Yeah, they're just round the corner. And it's annoying waiting. If you ever had that screen on your phone where it's just the spinning wheel and you're just like, what's going on? What's happening? Or if you've got the little bar across your web browser, it's annoying because you don't know how long that is going to take. There's no countdown. There's no clear indication. And when you book an Uber, I mean, I know the car spins around half the time. It looks like he's doing donuts on the map. I've watched it too much. You can book an Uber and it'll essentially tell you where it is. Now on Uber Eats, it does the same thing. So you're no longer sat there thinking, oh my God, I'm absolutely starving. I'm ravenous. I'm hungry. Where's my takeaway? You can actually look when they're on the way. So it tells you the process, which reduces the amount of stress that you get. What has this got to do with ceilings and plateaus? It applies in the same way to the progress that you're actually making. Because if you feel like you're just coming to the gym, you'll go through a process of being at maintenance. And if you don't focus on something that keeps your attention going, even though you might call that a routine, you might be someone who goes into the gym. If you're not challenging yourself in new ways at different times, you're going to go to the point of relapsing where you're considering, I'm going to have a little bit of time out the gym. I'm going to focus on something else. And for me personally, this is one of the biggest problems that most people face, because what they do is they convince themselves that they don't have the time, that it's costing them too much money because they're not getting the progress, because you're not you're not focused on something that is challenging you and feeling like it's helping you to move forward. Now, when we introduced the mobility sessions, there was a massive uproar in terms of how people thought it was. Uproar is a positive thing. Everybody loved it. They loved the feeling as a result of doing it. So we've done more of it. And we're going to come to a point very shortly where we're going to ask for feedback on this. And hopefully we get some good feedback on it that gives us some areas that we can improve on as coaches, particularly in other areas like some of the sessions that might not be as full. But also it gives us insights on like what you're finding challenging and what you want to do more of. And in essence, by doing those things that are challenging, that move us a little bit out of our comfort zone, and we can see progress in them, is going to allow you to keep on pushing through boundaries. So in terms of the ceilings, the plateaus, essentially when you first start is like, this is the floor. If you can't see this, you're listening to it, just imagine me putting my hand in front of my chest. So you've got your floor, and then you've got your ceiling just above that. Just above that ceiling, we want to be able to move you closer to that ceiling. But what will often happen is someone will come in and they'll train and they'll hit that ceiling and they'll come back down to the floor. And then the next time they come in, they hit the ceiling and they come back down. And they're going through a process of maintenance. Now, if you do that when you're doing training, often what you'll find will happen is what we call diminished returns. So if you've gone out and you've tried running before and you're like, I can't improve my time, it's usually because you've got no metrics or no measurements in order to indicate where you can potentially improve that. So when it comes to training, one of the things that I said recently is one of the girls come in and we were doing the hex bar deadlift, and I said, how much did you do on that last time? And it was 90 kilos. And I said, all right, was that your top set? Did you work up to it? So essentially, if you're not sure, what I mean by top set is if we do 3 sets, they might have done 70, 80, then 90 kilos as the top set. It's like, yeah, that's how I worked up to it. I pyramided it. And I was like, right, okay. What I want you to try and do today is we're going to warm up. So we did an extra warm up. We're going to warm up to the point of you being able to do 90 kilos. And I want you to see if you can do 3 rounds of that. Now, by the third round, that was massively challenging. Nothing else changed. We just focused on consistency with that. Now, what that's allowed this lady to do is when they've gone to that ceiling, they've gone back down, but the next time it's a bit more challenging. So with the same weight, they've gone through that ceiling, and then the third time they've gone a little bit higher. Now, if you do that enough times, that ceiling then becomes your new floor. And this is what happens to so many people when they come into the gym. The first time you did your evaluation, for some of you probably remember, you were aching for days because we spend a lot of time getting you into positions that's very personal to you, that challenges your body. And then once you've been doing that for a little while, that becomes your new floor. Then eventually you notice that you don't ache anymore. But then when we start doing a new program, you ache a little bit more. So we're always trying to balance between what is just out of your comfort zone that challenges you just a little bit so that you can feel like you're making progress, that keeps encouraging you to keep on coming. Because if something feels ridiculously hard in terms of challenge, that's going to demotivate you as much as being too low. And the way I like to think of it is kind of like a spirit level. If you've got the two bits of the spirit level, we always want to just get right in the middle. Or you could call it the Goldilocks zone. That's another way that I've turned it. We want something that's just right in terms of progression so that you can keep on moving forward. Now, the big thing that I want you to take away from this is to self-evaluate, is to think about like where you want to be challenged moving forward. Now, most of you will have seen that we've been doing check-ins recently. The check-ins are there for us to gauge where you're at right now, because it's very easy to just communicate with someone in the gym, but we often spend a lot of time with the coaching in there, and you don't get a huge amount of conversation or chat in terms of one-to-one with the coach in that instance, unless you're coming on your own, in which case it's still hard because we probably tend to err on the side of, right, let's throw the program out the window, let's do something that's very personal to you that often people find challenging. But anyway, I digress. But when we do these check-ins now, it allows us to understand exactly where you're at. Now, a lot of the stuff that comes through initially at first is surface level stuff. So we come back to you and we're like, right, we want to understand this a little bit more because we always want to be doing better as coaches. We always want to know that you are celebrating your wins. Now, most people who are interested in training will be on Boxmate. They'll be using the app to track the workouts. And then when you come into the gym, it's pretty easy to stay consistent. You know that when you come into the gym, we're going to be there to challenge you, but we want you to feel like you're making progress. And I think one of the biggest things that to understand right now is if you want to keep on making progress, you need to be able to look at what you're doing. Is this moving me closer to my goal or closer to the person that I want to be? Or am I just stagnant? Am I just floating around and I'm not really sure what I'm doing? Because if you are floating around at that point, it's probably a good point to start thinking about, right, what challenge do I want to do? Now, that doesn't mean that you're starting tomorrow. It's just a thought process, because in challenge comes growth. And the more growth you have, the better you feel. And the better you feel, the better all areas of your life are. Now, I would love to know that you found this helpful. Hopefully you have. I mean, I feel like I've rabbled on for a little bit, but the only way that I get better at doing these podcasts is by taking action on them. And I've put it off for so long now. So I wanted to make sure that I did one of these that was short, concise, helpful. It's about 15 minutes. I've just checked on the screen. So I really appreciate your time. I hope you've enjoyed this. Listen, I want to make sure that I can be the best coach that I can be to support you in your journey. And the only way that I can do that is by understanding your world a little bit more. And this topic has come from a few conversations that I've had recently, some of the check-ins, and the things that I found people struggle with most. So if you found this helpful, that'd be awesome. If you could let me know, give me some feedback. I think you can actually leave a review on this by the time that I upload it. If you found it that helpful, share it with someone, because it would be nice to know that people are actually listening to this rather than me just talking to myself. Anyway, I hope you found it helpful. I'll see you in the next one.